The Raiders made the decision that everybody wanted them to make, and that was making Antonio Pierce their full-time head coach. There was a rumor circulating around that if Antonio Pierce wasn't the full-time head coach, Max Crosby was going to demand a trade. Don't know how legitimate those rumors were, but, he did say everything was on the table. And now that you have the guy that all the fans wanted and all the players wanted, is Antonio Pierce going to be able to lead the Las Vegas Raiders to success? Because they're in a very tough division. All right, you got to go up against Patrick Mahomes 2 times a year. You're going to have to go up against Sean Payton. Regardless how you feel about Sean Payton and how things went for Denver this year, he's still a very good coach. He's still one of the best coaches in the NFL, and he's a future Hall of Famer. So you got to show him respect. And if the Chargers get Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, or Jim Harbaugh, they're going to be in the Super Bowl discussion right away, just with how good Justin Herbert is and how good of a roster they already somewhat have, even though they may have to move on from a couple of players. So for the Las Vegas Raiders, your defense played really good this season under Antonio Pierce, and you got a lot of good young players on that side of the ball outside of Max Crosby. Like, I was a big fan of Jack Jones when he was coming out of Arizona State, and when he got released by New England and he got picked up by the Raiders, I was like, this seems like the kind of move that the Las Vegas Raiders would make. And then I find out that Jack Jones, was a player under Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce used to coach him up back in his earlier playing days. So it made sense why Jack Jones ended up playing at an even better level for the Raiders than what he did with the New England Patriots. You also have some good wide receivers. You got Jacoby Myers. You have Devontae Adams. I doubt he's going to get traded to the New York Jets because he was somebody who was rooting for Antonio Pierce to get the interim head coach label removed from him and getting that full-time tag. So Antonio Pierce, you got some good young players to work with on defense. You got Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, some really good skill position players on offense. But your offensive line needs to be improved, and you definitely need to go out there and get you a quarterback. If Antonio Pierce is going to be able to succeed in Las Vegas, he has to really make the right hires on the offensive staff. You can't hire an offensive coordinator that doesn't know what he's doing. All right? Because that's the ultimate downfall of these defensive-minded coaches. Antonio Pierce, I don't view him solely as a defensive-minded coach. I view him more as a Mike Tomlin. He's a motivator. He's a player's coach who just happens to have a background on the defense side of the football. And he's somebody that knows how to get the most out of his players, highly energetic, great character guy, great leader of men. But are you going to be able to find the right quarterback? Are you going to be able to hire the right OC? Because DeMeco Ryans, he lucked up and got CJ Stroud and got Bobby Slowick, who is interviewing for head coaching jobs. That's what you need to have if you want to be successful as the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, that being Antonio Pierce. And my biggest concern is that maybe he isn't going to be able to find the end-strike quarterback. We know Aiden O'Connell isn't it. And there's some people who say that he should go out and sign Justin Fields or sign Russell Wilson or trade for Justin Fields. And I don't know about that. If I just got hired, just being an interim head coach, I'm now a full-time head coach. Why would I want to risk my 2-3 years with this team on quarterbacks who are developmental projects, such as Justin Fields? Like, we still don't know just what Justin Fields is. We don't know if this dude is a mid quarterback or if he's a great quarterback. He's somebody who you're still trying to figure out. You're still trying to untap his potential. And if I'm Antonio Pierce, I'm not trying to mess around with waiting on potential. And I'm not trying to waste my time on Russell Wilson. Trading for a guy like Justin Fields or signing Russell Wilson is how a guy like Antonio Pierce can end up getting fired. You just don't sign a guy like Russell Wilson who's getting into his late 30s, who is getting washed up, who isn't able to even throw in the middle of the field anymore. Like, he's a limitation to your offense. And Justin Fields isn't a good enough passer to win you a lot of games in that division. You need to go out there, either trade for a proven quarterback or get you Kirk Cousins, or trade up for one in the draft, or get you Jaden Daniels, who Antonio Pierce somewhat has some ties to back during their time with Arizona State. But the Raiders really need to get the right quarterback in there and to make the right hires on the offensive staff if Antonio Pierce is going to be successful. And he is going to have a say in those things, but he really has to make sure that he goes into next season not having any questions at quarterback. If you can get quarterback right, then you can succeed as a defensive-minded coach. Everybody keeps saying how you need an offensive-minded coach now to win games. They're taking over the league. No, you don't. All you need to do is to hire the right guys on that side of the football who know what they're doing and get the right quarterback. You can't be the New York Jets drafting a guy like Zach Wilson, firing your offensive coordinator, replacing them for Nathaniel Hackett, and think that you're going to be successful. You can't be a guy like Mike Tomlin, moving on from a future first ballot Hall of Famer, Big Ben, and replacing him with his successor being Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. The reason why these defensive defensive-minded coaches don't win is because they don't really have a good grasp of how to build a good offense. And you don't really need that, but you at least need to have an idea of how to assemble you a good staff and how to find you and how to evaluate the quarterback position. Antonio Pierce, he knows Aiden O'Connell isn't it. Hell, they probably even flirted with the idea of benching him. But they rolled with him. You know, young quarterback, let's see what he got. You feel me? And we know what Aiden O'Connell is. He's a really good backup. But for Antonio Pierce, if he's going to be able to win in this tough of a division, especially with the potential coach that the Chargers could hire being either Jim Harbaugh or Bill Belichick, you definitely need to make sure that you're not trying to find ways to win games, trying to overcome having a lackluster offense and incompetent quarterback play. The quarterback position and whoever he hires as his offensive coordinator is going to be what makes or break Antonio Pierce being successful with the Las Vegas Raiders. I love Antonio Pierce. I wanted him to get the job. There was only one head coach who I would have hired over Antonio Pierce, and that would have been Jim Harbaugh, because he's a proven winner. He has a way better track record than Antonio Pierce. Outside of him, who else was a better fit for Antonio Pierce? The players already were behind him, and they were willing to take some strong stands if he didn't get the job. And Mark Davis already made this mistake once when Rich Bisaccia took the Raiders to the playoffs and they nearly beat the Cincinnati Bengals, and I thought he would have gotten the head coaching job, but they hired Josh McDaniels, so I'm glad that Mark Davis learned from his previous mistake. And right now, this seems to look like a really good hire, but we're not really going to know just how truly good of a hire this was until we start seeing the results on the field. But this definitely is somebody who I do believe can have some success in Las Vegas if he gets the offensive coordinator and quarterback spots right. And if he does, there's no telling what this team could do.